I lost everything. 25 black celebrities who went bankrupt overnight. Imagine earning $300 million just to end up borrowing money for a fast food meal. From Mike Tyson's gold-plated mansions to Toni Braxton's $2,000 royalty checks, the world of black excellence legends isn't just about glamour. It's a battlefield of predatory contracts and systematic traps. We've seen icons lose empires to tax vultures and toxic entourages, proving that in Hollywood, your biggest opponent isn't the competition. It's the fine print. Does the industry intentionally set these stars up for failure? Or is personal accountability the only true shield? Subscribe now to Black Excellence. Legends, and comment below, is the industry rigged against greatness? George Clinton. George Clinton, the mastermind behind the legendary collectives Parliament and Funkadelic, represents one of the most complex and heartbreaking financial narratives in music history. Known for his P-Funk sound, a kaleidoscopic fusion of psychedelic rock, soul, and heavy groove, Clinton didn't just create songs, he birthed a cultural movement. However, the very creativity that allowed him to command the mothership failed to protect him from the terrestrial complexities of intellectual property law and predatory business practices. By the mid-1980s, the psychedelic pioneer found himself grounded by a mountain of debt. In 1984, Clinton filed for bankruptcy, citing liabilities exceeding $2 million owed to managers and record labels. Unlike some celebrities who lost fortunes on mansions or jewelry, Clinton's downfall was deeply rooted in the loss of his digital DNA, his masters, and publishing rights. He became embroiled in decades-long legal warfare over the ownership of his music, alleging that his signature had been forged on documents that signed away the rights to his most iconic works from the late 70s. The financial strain was exacerbated by a period of heavy drug addiction, which clouded his business judgment and drained his remaining resources. Because he had signed away his royalties to Bridgeport Music and other entities, he watched as his tracks were sampled by hundreds of hip-hop artists, generating millions of dollars in revenue for others while he struggled to make ends meet. It wasn't until much later in life that Clinton successfully fought to regain control of some of his works and achieve sobriety. His story serves as a stark warning to creators. Without legal vigilance, even the most influential visionaries can find themselves strangers to their own creations, proving that in the music industry, the pen is often more dangerous than the sword. Evander Holyfield. Evander, the real deal. Holyfield is an undisputed legend of the squared circle, the only four-time world heavyweight champion in boxing history. Over a career spanning nearly 3 decades, Holyfield's relentless heart and iron chin earned him a staggering fortune exceeding $230 million. Yet outside the ring, the warrior who survived Mike Tyson's bite and ridiculous Bo's punches found himself defenseless against the silent erosion of financial mismanagement and overwhelming overhead costs. The centerpiece of Holyfield's financial collapse was his 54,000-square-foot mega mansion in Fayetteville, Georgia. This 109-room behemoth featured a bowling alley, a movie theater, and one of the largest private pools in the United States. While the estate cost roughly $10 million to construct, the true knockout blow was the maintenance. It required over $1 million annually just to keep the lights on and the staff paid. By 2012, the crushing weight of a $14 million mortgage debt, combined with massive child support obligations for his 11 children and a series of failed business ventures, forced a tragic conclusion. The bank foreclosed on the property, and the estate, a monument to his peak success, sold at auction for a mere $7.5 million, a fraction of its replacement value. Holyfield's descent into insolvency highlights a common pitfall for elite athletes: the indestructibility complex. Believing the revenue stream would never dry up, he invested in high-stakes ventures without proper diversification or professional oversight. He also spent millions at casinos and on luxury assets that depreciated rapidly. Despite losing his primary fortune, Holyfield remains a figure of immense dignity, traveling the world for appearances and signing memorabilia to stabilize his life. His story is a powerful reminder that no matter how much you earn, an unsustainable lifestyle will eventually demand a reckoning that even a heavyweight champion cannot outbox. Kanye West. Kanye West, a figure synonymous with boundary-pushing music and polarizing public discourse, provided one of the most shocking financial revelations in modern pop culture. In 2016, right before the release of his album, The Life of Pablo West, took to Twitter to announce he was $53 million in personal debt. Unlike many of his peers who lost their wealth through passive neglect or hedonistic excess, West's financial hemorrhaging was the result of a deliberate high-stakes gamble on himself. He had spent years funneling his own liquidity into his fashion aspirations, specifically the early iterations of the Yeezy brand, after being turned away by traditional fashion houses. This period was a masterclass in the risks of self-funding a global empire. West moved his operations to Italy, invested in factories, and paid for design teams out of his own pocket. At one point, he famously appealed to Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg for a $1 billion investment to fund his ideas, claiming he was personally rich but lacked the capital to realize his architectural and design visions. The $53 million deficit was a symptom of his refusal to compromise on creative control. He preferred to border on insolvency than to answer to corporate boardrooms that didn't share his aesthetic radicalism. However, West's story is a rare example of a financial near-death experience leading to an unprecedented recovery. By doubling down on his partnership with Adidas and streamlining the Yeezy supply chain, he transformed a debt-ridden vanity project into a multi-billion-dollar juggernaut. While later controversies would jeopardize his business standing and net worth, his 2016 crisis remains a definitive moment in celebrity finance. It illustrated that even for a global superstar, the bridge between creative genius and financial ruin is dangerously narrow, often held together only by the next successful product launch or a desperate pivot in the strategy. Lil Kim. Lil Kim, born Kimberly Jones, is an undisputed pioneer of female rap, whose provocative style and lyrical prowess redefined the genre in the late 1990s. Despite her status as a global icon and a Grammy winner, Kim's financial narrative took a distressing turn toward the end of the 2010s. In June 2018, the Queen Bee filed for Chapter 13 bankruptcy, a legal maneuver aimed at reorganizing her debts to prevent the foreclosure of her Alpine, New Jersey mansion. At the time of the filing, the rapper's financial disclosure revealed a staggering deficit. She owed approximately $4.08 million, while her assets were valued at roughly $2.57 million. The anatomy of Kim's insolvency was a complex blend of historical tax issues and high-cost living. Court documents indicated that a significant portion of her debt, over $1.8 million, was owed to the IRS in unpaid back taxes dating as far back as 2003. Additionally, she faced thousands of dollars in unpaid legal fees and even smaller domestic debts, such as a $26,000 bill for landscaping services. Despite earning an average monthly income of nearly $13,000, at the time her expenses were simply unsustainable. The situation forced Kim to seek a fresh start through the court system, hoping to protect her primary residence, which she had purchased at the height of her fame, but struggled to maintain during a lull in her career. Lil Kim's journey highlights the precarious nature of maintaining an elite image when the commercial peak of one's career has passed. Unlike many modern artists who diversify into tech or massive retail partnerships early, Kim's wealth was heavily tied to the traditional music model. Her bankruptcy became a public example of how compound interest on tax debt and the high overhead of luxury properties can swallow even a legendary career. However, the filing allowed her to restructure, proving that for the Queen Bee, survival often requires the same tenacity she displayed in the recording booth. Antoine Walker. Antoine Walker's financial trajectory is one of the most cited cautionary tales in the history of professional sports. A three-time NBA All-Star and a champion with the Miami Heat, Walker earned a staggering $110 million in salary during his illustrious career. However, by 2010, just 2 years after his final professional game, he filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy, citing debts of $12.7 million against dwindling assets. Walker's collapse was not the result of a single catastrophic event, but rather a slow, agonizing bleed caused by a combination of hyper-extravagance, a support system mentality, and a massive real estate failure during the Great Recession. At his peak, Walker lived a life of unchecked luxury, admitting to a car fetish that saw him owning a fleet of Maybachs and Bentleys and spending millions on designer suits and custom jewelry. Yet the largest drain on his wealth was his unparalleled generosity. Walker reportedly supported a rotating entourage of roughly 30 friends and family members, providing them with homes, luxury cars, and cash stipends without ever expecting repayment. This neighborhood hero complex, combined with his high-stakes gambling habits in casinos, created a burn rate that even an NBA superstar's salary could not sustain. The final knockout blow came from Walker Ventures, his real estate firm. Walker had used his personal fortune as collateral for various development projects in Chicago. When the global financial crisis hit in 2008, the property market cratered, leaving him personally liable for millions in loans that he could no longer pay. Stripped of his mansions and his championship ring, Walker eventually pivoted to financial education, sharing his story to prevent young athletes from repeating his mistakes. His narrative serves as a haunting reminder that in the world of sudden wealth, being a provider for everyone else can often leave you with nothing for yourself. Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson, the king of pop, remains a titan of cultural history, but his financial narrative is a staggering study in high-stakes imbalance. Throughout his life, Jackson generated billions in revenue from record-breaking albums like Thriller and world tours. However, at the time of his passing in 2009, he was reportedly burdened by a staggering $500 million in debt. His insolvency was a direct consequence of a lifestyle that operated with zero fiscal friction, an existence where expenses consistently outpaced even the most massive income streams in the music industry. The financial black hole of Jackson's life was undoubtedly Neverland Ranch. This 2,700-acre fantasy estate cost millions annually just to maintain, staffed with a private zoo and amusement park rides. Beyond the property, Jackson was known for erratic, high-volume shopping sprees, often spending millions on art and antiques during a single afternoon. To fund this burn rate, he frequently took out massive loans using his most valuable asset as collateral, the ATV Sony catalog, which contained the publishing rights to the Beatles' songs. By 2009, he owed money to more than 65 different creditors, and the interest on his loans had become a suffocating entity of its own. Despite the $500 million deficit at his death, Jackson's story took a posthumous turn that redefined celebrity estates. The This Is It concert series, originally intended to fix his finances while he was alive, became a blueprint for his executors to monetize his legacy. Through the sale of his assets and the strategic management of his music, the estate was not only able to pay off the massive debt, but grew into a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. Jackson's life serves as a definitive lesson. Even a global superstar can be cash poor despite being asset-rich, proving that without liquid stability, even a king can be overwhelmed by the cost of his own kingdom. Lisa Raye McCoy. Lisa Raye McCoy, a prominent actress celebrated for her breakout role as Diamond in the Players Club and her long-standing presence in television, encountered a financial storm that threatened the lifestyle she spent decades building. Unlike the typical tales of reckless gambling or luxury car fleets, Lisa Raye's fiscal struggles were deeply intertwined with a high-profile marriage and subsequent political fallout. In 2014, reports surfaced that the actress had faced significant financial strain, with some estimates suggesting a loss of approximately $1.3 million due to a combination of poor investment choices and the volatile nature of her personal life. The epicenter of her financial instability was her marriage to Michael Missick, the former premier of the Turks and Caicos Islands. What began as a fairy tale union quickly dissolved into a nightmare of corruption scandals and legal battles. When Missick was accused of misusing government funds and his assets were frozen, Lisa Raye found herself in a precarious position. She later revealed in interviews that the transition from living as a first lady with access to immense wealth to a single actress rebuilding her career was jarring. The divorce proceedings were contentious, and the expected settlements were complicated by her ex-husband's legal status, leaving her to navigate the aftermath with limited immediate liquidity. Beyond the marital collapse, Lisa Raye admitted that her ventures into real estate did not yield the overnight returns she had anticipated. Property investments that were meant to be safety nets became financial anchors during market downturns. However, McCoy's story is defined by her resilience. Rather than disappearing from the spotlight, she pivoted back to her roots, starring in successful series like Single Ladies and launching various business lines in beauty and fashion. Her journey serves as a sobering reminder that tying one's financial destiny to another person, no matter how powerful, is a risk, and that true wealth lies in the ability to reinvent oneself when the bank account hits zero. MC Hammer. MC Hammer-born Stanley Burrell became the definitive face of early 90s commercial hip-hop, amassing a fortune estimated at $70 million at his peak. He wasn't just a musician, he was a global phenomenon whose baggy pants and high-energy choreography defined an era. However, his financial trajectory serves as perhaps the most spectacular example of hyperspending in entertainment history. In 1996, just a few years after topping the charts, Hammer filed for bankruptcy, citing debts of over $13 million against assets that had dwindled to nearly nothing. The primary engine of Hammer's ruin was his astronomical monthly overhead. He famously employed an entourage of over 200 people from his local community, viewing his wealth as a tool for communal uplift. This payroll, combined with the upkeep of Hammerland, a $12 million custom mansion featuring gold-plated gates, 2 swimming pools, and marble floors embedded with his likeness, cost him roughly $1 million per month. Hammer didn't just spend on people. He invested heavily in luxury assets that offered no return, including a stable of 19 thoroughbred racehorses and a fleet of high-end vehicles. By the time his album sales began to dip, the massive infrastructure he built remained consuming his remaining cash reserves at a terminal rate. Hammer's downfall was exacerbated by a lack of professional financial boundaries. He treated his bank account as an inexhaustible fountain, failing to account for the fickle nature of the music industry. However, following his bankruptcy, Hammer underwent a profound personal transformation. He became an ordained minister and a tech-savvy entrepreneur, investing in early-stage Silicon Valley startups and becoming a respected voice in the digital space. His story is the ultimate cautionary tale. It proves that while you might be too big to fail in your own mind, the mathematics of a $1 million monthly burn rate will eventually touch and dismantle any empire. Chris Tucker. Chris Tucker's financial journey is a paradoxical tale of immense success followed by a staggering tax reckoning. At the height of his career, after the massive success of the Rush Hour franchise, Tucker became the highest-paid actor in Hollywood, commanding a record-breaking $25 million for a single film. However, his financial peak was shadowed by a mounting crisis that would later become public. By 2014, reports revealed that Tucker was buried under a massive federal tax lien, owing the IRS more than $14 million. The root of Tucker's downfall was not typical Hollywood debauchery, but rather a combination of poor financial oversight and accounting errors during his highest-earning years. For nearly a decade while he was out of the spotlight and making fewer films, the interest and penalties on his unpaid taxes ballooned into an unmanageable sum. In 2021, the IRS filed another lawsuit seeking $9.6 million in back taxes, interest, and penalties, spanning multiple years. Tucker's situation was a classic example of tax debt snowballing, where the initial amount owed becomes secondary to the crushing weight of government-imposed interest. Despite the daunting figures, Tucker handled his situation with a blend of humor and pragmatism. He famously joked about his financial woes in his stand-up specials, acknowledging that his Blade co-star Wesley Snipes wasn't the only one the IRS was watching. In 2023, he finally reached a settlement, with the government agreeing to pay $3.58 million to clear a significant portion of his debt. Tucker's story serves as a vital lesson for high earners. Making millions is only half the battle. The other half is ensuring the taxman gets his share on time, or the rush hour of success will eventually lead to a long wait in a legal line. Toni Braxton. Toni Braxton, the husky-voiced siren behind the timeless anthem, Unbreak My Heart, experienced a financial trajectory that was as dramatic as her 7-octave range. Despite selling over $170 million worth of records at her peak, Braxton became the industry's primary example of how predatory contracts can bankrupt a superstar. In 1998, the world was stunned when she filed for bankruptcy for the first time, revealing that despite her global dominance, her initial royalty check from her record label was a measly $1,972. Because of a lopsided deal, she was earning as little as 33 cents per album, leaving her unable to pay for the very glamour her image required. Her first filing revealed debts of $50 million, much of it tied to the lifestyle she was expected to maintain while being underpaid. However, lightning struck twice in 2010 when she filed for bankruptcy again. This second collapse was triggered by a health crisis. After being diagnosed with lupus, an autoimmune disease, Braxton was forced to cancel a series of lucrative Las Vegas shows. These cancellations led to a cascade of breached contracts and lost revenue, resulting in debts ranging between $10 million and $50 million. She found herself owing money to everyone from luxury retailers like Tiffany & Company to the IRS, proving that health issues can dismantle wealth even faster than a bad contract. Braxton's resilience, however, became her defining trait. Rather than fading away, she pivoted to reality television with the hit show Braxton Family Values, allowing her to monetize her personal brand and rebuild her finances. She also returned to the stage and Broadway, proving she could unbreak her bank account with hard work and transparency. Her story remains a vital lesson for artists on the importance of contract literacy and the necessity of disability insurance in an industry where your body is your primary business asset. Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson, once known as the baddest man on the planet, redefined the limits of athletic earning power and destructive spending. During the late 1980s and 90s, Tyson's ferocious knockouts generated a staggering fortune exceeding $300 million, with some estimates reaching $600 million over his career. However, his financial fortress was built on sand, lacking the structural integrity of professional oversight. In 2003, the boxing world was rocked when the former heavyweight champion filed for bankruptcy, revealing that he was $23 million in debt and possessed virtually no liquid assets. Tyson's financial evaporation was a masterclass in unchecked indulgence. At the peak of his fame, his monthly expenses were astronomical. He famously purchased pet Siberian tigers that cost thousands per month to feed and house, alongside a collection of luxury mansions, including one in Ohio featuring gold-plated bathroom fixtures. His car fetish resulted in the purchase of over 100 luxury vehicles, many of which he gave away to strangers or friends on a whim. Beyond the physical assets, Tyson's wealth was drained by complex legal battles, a $9 million divorce settlement, and a massive $13.4 million tax bill that he had neglected for years. He admitted that at his peak, he was surrounded by vultures who exploited his lack of financial literacy. The aftermath of the bankruptcy forced Tyson into a humble and transparent era of self-reflection. He famously stated, "I didn't think I'd make it to 40, reflecting the chaotic nature of his youth. Rather than falling into obscurity, Tyson orchestrated a remarkable cultural comeback. He transformed his image from a feared brawler to a beloved entertainer through cameos in films like The Hangover, a successful podcast, and the launch of a highly profitable cannabis empire. His story serves as the ultimate warning that even the most formidable Iron Mike can be corroded by a lack of financial discipline, proving that the toughest opponent anyone faces is often the reflection in the mirror." Fantasia Barrino. Fantasia Barrino, the soulful powerhouse who captivated millions to win the third season of American Idol in 2004, embodied the ultimate Cinderella story. Her raw talent and emotional vulnerability turned her into a household name, leading to a platinum debut album and a successful Broadway run. However, by 2009, the fairy tale hit a grim financial wall. Despite her immense fame and consistent work, Fantasia found herself on the brink of losing everything. The singer faced the public humiliation of seeing her North Carolina mansion, purchased for $1.3 million, head toward a foreclosure auction due to a mountain of unpaid taxes and defaulted loans. The root of Fantasia's financial decay was a combination of new money mismanagement and the heavy burden of being the sole provider for an extended family. She admitted to not fully understanding the complex contracts she signed as a young artist and lacked a professional team to guard her earnings. In 2009, it was revealed she owed roughly $1.1 million in back taxes and property expenses. To prevent the bank from selling her home on the courthouse steps, she was forced to make the heartbreaking decision to surrender the deed of one of her properties to the bank. This period was marked by deep personal struggle as she fought to maintain her dignity, while her private financial failures became tabloid fodder. Fantasia's story, however, is ultimately one of redemption and financial literacy 2.0. She became vocal about her struggles, famously titled her autobiography, Life is Not a Fairy Tale, and took control of her business affairs. By pivoting back to acting, most notably her critically acclaimed role in the film adaptation of The Color Purple, and touring, she managed to stabilize her estate and rebuild her brand on a foundation of transparency. Her journey serves as a sobering reminder that a winning vote on a reality show does not grant immunity from the real-world consequences of poor financial oversight. Marvin Gaye. Marvin Gaye, the Prince of Motown, and the voice of a generation, possessed a musical genius that seemed divine. From the political urgency of What's Going On to the sensual heights of Let's Get It On, Gaye was a commercial juggernaut. Yet behind the velvet vocals lay a life fractured by financial chaos and personal demons. By 1976, the man who helped build the Motown empire was forced to file for bankruptcy. Unlike many modern celebrity downfalls triggered by retail therapy, Gaye's ruin was the result of a devastating intersection of drug addiction, tax evasion, and an incredibly expensive divorce. The most unique chapter of his financial collapse involved his divorce from Anna Gordy, the sister of Motown founder Berry Gordy. Unable to pay the $600,000 in back alimony and child support ordered by the court, Gaye struck a deal that was unprecedented in the music industry. He agreed to record a new album and funneled the first $305,000 of its royalties directly to his ex-wife, with the subsequent $295,000 following shortly after. The result was the 1978 double album, Here My Dear, a raw, voyeuristic, and deeply personal account of their marriage. While today it is considered a masterpiece, at the time it was a creative sacrifice born of total economic desperation. The final years of Gaye's life were shadowed by a constant flight from creditors and the IRS. He spent time in Europe as a tax exile, struggling to manage a cocaine addiction that drained his remaining cash reserves and clouded his business judgment. Despite a massive comeback with Sexual Healing in 1982, his financial infrastructure remained in shambles until his tragic death in 1984. Marvin Gaye's story remains a haunting lesson on the cost of living. It proves that even the most sublime talent cannot outrun the legal obligations of the heart and the heavy toll of substance abuse. Sinbad. Sinbad, born David Adkins, was a staple of 1990s family entertainment, known for his clean stand-up comedy and starring roles in films like Jingle All the Way. At the peak of his career, he was a prolific earner, commandingly high fees for HBO specials and television sitcoms. However, his financial narrative is defined by a staggering, decades-long struggle with taxation. Sinbad holds the rare distinction of filing for bankruptcy twice, first in 2009 and again in 2013, revealing a systemic inability to align his massive earnings with his mounting fiscal obligations. The primary architect of Sinbad's ruin was not a lavish rock star lifestyle, but rather a catastrophic failure to manage tax withholdings and business overhead. By the time of his 2013 filing, the comedian reported owing approximately $11 million in total debt. The vast majority of this was owed to the government, including $8.3 million to the IRS and $2.3 million to the state of California. Despite maintaining a respectable monthly income of roughly $16,000 at the time, his expenses ranging from support for his extended family to business operations left him with zero liquidity to satisfy his tax liens. He famously remarked that he didn't live large, but rather failed to account for the compounding nature of government penalties and interest. Sinbad's story is a textbook example of how tax debt inertia can paralyze an artist. Even when he was working consistently, the debt grew faster than his ability to pay it off, creating a cycle of insolvency that lasted nearly 20 years. Despite these crushing burdens and recent health setbacks, including a stroke in 2020, Sinbad has remained a figure of resilience, often using his platform to educate others on the importance of financial literacy. His journey serves as a sobering reminder: no matter how many people you make laugh, the IRS remains a humorless creditor that demands its share with mathematical precision. Allen Iverson. Allen the Answer. Iverson was more than an NBA superstar. He was a cultural phenomenon whose influence on fashion and attitude reshaped the league. Over an illustrious career with the Philadelphia 76ers and other teams, Iverson amassed a staggering $200 million in salary and endorsements. However, his financial story is a harrowing illustration of how hyper-generosity and a lack of fiscal boundaries can dissolve a massive fortune. By 2012, just 2 years after his final game reports emerged that Iverson was struggling to pay a $900,000 debt to a jeweler, and rumors of his insolvency became a public spectacle. The anatomy of Iverson's financial erosion was rooted in his legendary loyalty to his entourage. He famously supported a group of roughly 50 friends and family members, paying for their travel, housing, and lifestyles without question. His monthly burn rate was astronomical. He reportedly spent $10,000 on clothes, $10,000 on restaurants, and $10,000 on groceries, all while maintaining a fleet of luxury vehicles and expensive properties. This open-handed philosophy, combined with heavy gambling in casinos and a lack of professional financial oversight, created a vacuum that swallowed his liquid assets. Iverson didn't just spend money, he treated his wealth as a communal resource for an entire community, failing to account for the day the game would stop. Fortunately, Iverson's story contains a unique safety net that sets it apart from many of his peers. During his peak, his advisors negotiated a lifetime endorsement deal with Raye, which included a $32 million trust fund. The catch: he cannot touch the principal until he turns 55 in 2030. Currently, he receives roughly $1 million annually from the brand, providing him with a structured allowance that protects him from total ruin. His journey remains a powerful cautionary tale for young athletes. It proves that while you can be an MVP on the court without a defensive strategy for your bank account, even a $200 million lead can vanish before the final buzzer. Wesley Snipes. Wesley Snipes was the quintessential action star of the late 1990s, a martial arts powerhouse whose portrayal of the vampire hunter in the Blade trilogy earned him an estimated $38 million between 1999 and 2004. At the height of his fame, he was earning upwards of $13 million per film. However, his financial downfall became one of the most high-profile legal sagas in celebrity history. In 2006, the U.S. government charged Snipes with tax fraud and conspiracy, alleging that he had failed to file tax returns and owed the IRS a staggering $23.5 million in unpaid taxes, interest, and penalties. The root of Snipes' crisis was not a lack of funds, but rather a dangerous adherence to tax protester theories. Influenced by advisors who claimed that the federal government had no legal authority to collect income tax from citizens, Snipes stopped filing returns entirely for several years. This ideological gamble backfired spectacularly. Despite his legal team's efforts to argue that he was a victim of bad advice, Snipes was convicted of 3 misdemeanor counts of failing to file federal income tax returns. In 2010, the Hollywood star traded his luxury estates for a prison cell, serving a 3-year sentence in a federal correctional institution. The cost of his financial rebellion was immense. Beyond the loss of his freedom and his primary fortune, the legal battle and the interest on his debt decimated his liquidity. Even after his release in 2013, Snipes remained under the crushing weight of a $9.5 million tax lien. His recovery has been a slow, disciplined process of returning to character acting and rebuilding his reputation. His narrative serves as a brutal reminder: in the eyes of the government, fame provides no sanctuary from fiscal obligations, and following alternative tax theories is a guaranteed path to a real-world prison sentence. T-Pain. T-Pain, the auto-tune pioneer whose melodic hooks dominated the mid-2000s, provided one of the most candid and relatable financial confessions in music history. Known for hits like Buy You a Drink, T-Pain amassed a fortune of $40 million at his peak. However, by 2019, he shocked fans by revealing that he had hit absolute zero. His downfall wasn't due to a single scandal, but a slow erosion caused by a blind trust in management and a lack of personal financial oversight. He famously admitted that at his lowest point, he had to borrow money to buy his children a Burger King meal, a staggering fall for a man who once spent $400,000 on a single big-ass chain. The mechanics of T-Pain's financial collapse were rooted in bad real estate investments and unchecked lifestyle inflation. He allowed his manager to purchase fixer-upper properties that were never sold effectively, bleeding his cash reserves into money pits. Simultaneously, he was spending recklessly, including a $2 million Bugatti that he eventually abandoned after only 5 months because it was too expensive to maintain. His accountant reportedly panicked as the star's liquidity vanished, warning him that he might have to sell his $6 million Atlanta mansion just to stay afloat. T-Pain's story is a classic case of an artist being mega rich on paper while being cash poor in reality, blinded by the momentum of his own success. T-Pain's recovery, however, is a masterclass in the pivot. Instead of chasing his lost millions through traditional means, he reinvented himself as a digital entrepreneur and personality. He embraced Twitch streaming, where his charisma built a new younger audience, and launched the Nappy Boy Radio podcast. He diversified into business ventures ranging from his own cognac line to a mixology book. By taking direct control of his career and giving a shit about money, as he put it, he rebuilt his net worth to an estimated $10 million by 2024. His journey serves as a powerful reminder. The goal isn't just to make $40 million, but to have the discipline to keep it, proving that true success is found in the ability to rise again after losing it all. NeNe Leakes. NeNe Leakes, the breakout star of The Real Housewives of Atlanta, transformed her role as a reality television personality into a global brand. Known for her razor-sharp wit and catchphrases, Leakes parlayed her TV fame into Broadway roles, a recurring spot on Glee, and a fashion line. At the height of her influence, she was reportedly the highest-paid housewife, earning over $2.88 million per season. However, the financial narrative of living large on screen eventually collided with the harsh reality of government obligations. In 2016, the IRS filed a massive federal tax lien against her, alleging that she owed approximately $824,000 in unpaid taxes from the 2014 tax year. The anatomy of NeNe's financial strain was a classic example of lifestyle inflation coupled with tax oversight. As her income skyrocketed, so did her overhead. She famously lived in a $1 million Mediterranean-style mansion in Duluth, Georgia, and maintained a wardrobe and social calendar that required immense liquid capital. The tax lien became a public embarrassment, highlighting the gap between the affluent persona projected on Bravo and the reality of her fiscal management. Beyond the federal debt, she also faced a state tax lien from Georgia amounting to nearly $95,000. These financial hurdles suggested that while she was making millions, her professional team failed to account for the massive success tax that accompanies seven-figure earnings. Despite the headlines, NeNe Leakes demonstrated a remarkable ability to pivot and resolve her debts. She reportedly cleared her tax obligations through her various business ventures and television appearances. However, her financial world faced a new set of challenges following the tragic passing of her husband and business partner, Greg Leakes, in 2021. The legal battles over her departure from Bravo and subsequent lawsuits regarding her brand further complicated her portfolio. Her journey serves as a sobering lesson in the reality TV era. Fame can build a mansion, but only rigorous financial discipline can keep the IRS from knocking on its front door. Isaac Hayes. Isaac Hayes, the Black Moses of soul music, was a polymath of talent whose baritone voice and cinematic arrangements defined the Stax Records sound. After the monumental success of the Shaft soundtrack in 1971, which earned him an Academy Award and 2 Grammys, Hayes was effectively a king of the music world. However, his financial kingdom was built on a foundation of structural instability. In 1976, at the height of his cultural impact, Hayes was forced to file for involuntary Chapter 11 bankruptcy. He was burdened by over $6 million in debt, while his remaining assets were valued at a fraction of that amount. The anatomy of Hayes' ruin was a tragic blend of corporate mismanagement at Stax Records and his own excessive overhead. Hayes lived a life of royal proportions, maintaining a fleet of luxury cars, including a custom gold-plated Cadillac and a staff that cost thousands per month. However, the most devastating blow occurred during the bankruptcy proceedings. Because of the way his contracts were structured with the struggling Stax Records, Hayes lost the rights to all his future royalties. This included the iconic theme from Shaft, one of the most sampled and profitable pieces of music in history. He effectively walked away from his own legacy with zero equity, forced to watch as millions in revenue flowed to creditors and new owners. The aftermath of his collapse was a long, arduous climb back to relevance. Hayes spent years working as a session musician and actor to provide for his family, eventually finding a second wave of massive success in the late 1990s as the voice of Chef on the animated series South Park. This role provided him with the financial stability that had eluded him for decades. His story is a chilling reminder of the importance of intellectual property. It proves that no matter how much you earn, if you do not own your masters and your publishing, you are merely a tenant in your own house of hits. 50 Cent. 50 Cent Curtis Jackson provides perhaps the most unique financial narrative in hip-hop history. Known for his get rich or die trying mantra, Jackson built a business empire that extended far beyond music, most notably netting an estimated $100 million from the sale of vitamin water to Coca-Cola. However, in 2015, the world was shocked when the mogul filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy, claiming debts of $36 million against assets that appeared to have evaporated. To the public, it looked like a total collapse. To Jackson, it was a calculated legal maneuver. The filing was triggered by two massive legal blows, a $7 million judgment for leaking a private video and a $17 million loss in a lawsuit over a headphone business. By filing for Chapter 11, reorganization 50 Cent effectively paused these payments, allowing him to protect his remaining business interests while the court scrutinized his finances. During the proceedings, he famously claimed that his displays of wealth, stacks of cash on Instagram, and luxury vehicles were merely props used to maintain his brand. While his lifestyle was indeed expensive, the bankruptcy was less about being broke and more about being financially cornered by litigation. Jackson's exit from bankruptcy in 2017 was as swift as his entry. He paid off roughly $23 million of his debt ahead of schedule and emerged with his brand and credit largely intact. Since then, he has pivoted into a television powerhouse, producing the massive Power universe on Starz and securing lucrative deals for his G-Unit film and television company. His story serves as a masterclass in the difference between liquidity and wealth, and how the legal system can be used as a shield by those who understand the mechanics of money. Lauryn Hill. Lauryn Hill, the visionary voice of the Fugees and the architect of the seminal album, The Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, reached the pinnacle of music history in the late 1990s. Her solo debut won 5 Grammys in a single night and established her as a global icon of neo-soul. However, her financial narrative took a sharp turn as she stepped away from the industry's traditional machinery. By 2012, Hill faced a major crisis when the U.S. government charged her with failing to file tax returns on earnings of approximately $1.8 million between 2005 and 2007. The root of Hill's financial struggle was deeply ideological. She famously withdrew from the spotlight to preserve her artistic integrity and protect her family from what she called the parasitic nature of the music business. During this period of self-imposed exile, her revenue streams slowed, but her overhead and tax obligations did not. When the IRS came knocking, Hill claimed that she had intended to pay, but was unable to do so during her hiatus from the industry. Unlike many stars who cite reckless spending, Hill's debt was a byproduct of her disconnection from the commercial systems required to manage a superstar's fiscal health. The consequence of this miseducation in taxes was severe. In 2013, Hill was sentenced to 3 months in federal prison, followed by 3 months of house arrest. To settle her debts, which had ballooned to over $1 million, including penalties, she was forced to return to the commercial world. She had rejected signing a new deal with Sony Music and embarking on a rigorous touring schedule. Her journey serves as a sobering reminder that artistic freedom does not grant exemption from the law. Even a queen of music must navigate the rigid reality of the tax system to maintain her throne. Bow Wow Shadmoss, who burst onto the scene as a preteen protege of Jermaine Dupri, represents a unique case study in the illusion of wealth within the hip-hop industry. Having earned millions while still a minor through multi-platinum albums and a successful transition into acting, like Mike Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift, Bow Wow's financial narrative became a subject of intense public scrutiny in 2012. During a child support hearing, the rapper reportedly told a judge that he had only $1,500 in his checking account and was earning roughly $4,000 a month, despite having a reputation for a high-flying lifestyle. The discrepancy between his public image and private balance sheet led to the infamous Bow Wow Challenge in 2017. The rapper posted a photo of a private jet implying he was traveling in luxury only for a passenger on a commercial flight to snap a photo of him sitting in coach on the same day. This moment highlighted a common pitfall for child stars, the struggle to maintain an adult lifestyle that matches a peak income earned during childhood. Beyond the social media, flexing Bow Wow faced tangible legal hurdles, including a $90,000 tax lien from the IRS and lawsuits from luxury car leasing companies for unpaid balances on Ferraris and Lamborghinis. Bow Wow's story is less about total bankruptcy and more about the volatility of celebrity cash flow. He eventually stabilized his finances by securing consistent work as a host on BET's 106 and Park, and starring in the CSI Cyber franchise. He has since been open about the pressures of the industry, admitting that he often spent money to keep up appearances rather than building long-term wealth. His journey serves as a modern lesson on the social media tax, the hidden cost of projecting a billionaire lifestyle on a millionaire's or thousandaires budget. Terrell Owens. Terrell Owens, known as T.O., was one of the most electric and polarizing wide receivers in NFL history. Over a 15-season career with the 49ers, Eagles, and Cowboys, his physical dominance earned him nearly $80 million in salary alone. However, by 2011, just 1 year after his final NFL catch, Owens stood before a judge and admitted he was broke. His story is a heartbreaking look at the perfect storm of high-stakes expenses, predatory advice, and the sudden evaporation of a massive income. The core of T.O.'s financial collapse was a combination of staggering fixed costs and bad investments. At his peak, Owens was paying roughly $45,000 a month in child support for 4 children, plus an additional $60,000 a month in mortgages for the homes where their mothers lived. When his NFL salary vanished, these court-ordered obligations totaling over $1.2 million annually didn't stop. Simultaneously, he revealed that a financial advisor recommended by his former agent had placed his money in shady high-risk ventures, including a failed entertainment center in Alabama, resulting in losses of nearly $6.5 million. He famously noted that he trusted people to have his back, while he focused on football, only to realize he had been burned when the bank accounts finally hit zero. Today, Owens has managed a resilient second act by pivoting to reality TV media appearances and his own lifestyle brand, Prototype 81. While his estimated net worth as of 2026 sits around $500,000, a far cry from his $80 million peak, he has become a vocal advocate for financial literacy among young athletes. He often shares the idiotic mistakes he made, such as buying luxury cars to keep up with his peers, as a warning to the next generation. His journey proves that in the game of wealth, your defense, savings, and oversight is just as important as your offense earnings. Dionne Warwick. Dionne Warwick, the sophisticated songstress behind classics like Walk On By and I Say a Little Prayer, represents a unique case of financial hardship where the principal debt was overshadowed by the compounding weight of penalties. Despite a career that saw her become the second most charted female vocalist of the rock era and earn millions through recording, touring, and her infamous role as the spokesperson for the Psychic Friends Network, Warwick filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy in 2013. At age 72, the Grammy winner reported having only $25,500 in assets, mostly furniture and jewelry, against a staggering $10.7 million in debt. The epicenter of Warwick's financial collapse was not excessive spending, but rather negligent and gross financial mismanagement by former business managers during the late 1980s and 1990s. According to her legal team, Warwick had actually paid off the face value of her original taxes. However, because the filings were handled incorrectly, the IRS and the state of California added interest and penalties that mushroomed over 2 decades. Her attorney famously noted that before she knew it, she owed $1 gazillion in taxes that were mathematically impossible to pay off with her monthly income, which at the time was roughly $21,000, nearly equal to her monthly expenses. Warwick's story reached a resolution in 2014 when a bankruptcy judge discharged the majority of her tax debt, allowing her to keep some personal items and a small amount of cash. Since then, she has experienced a remarkable cultural resurgence, becoming a queen of Twitter, now X, and reaching a whole new generation with her wit and timeless grace. As of 2026, she remains an active and beloved figure, proving that while interest rates can be cruel, a legacy built on genuine talent is truly discharge-proof. Gary Coleman. Gary Coleman, the beloved star of Different Strokes, represents one of the most heartbreaking cautionary tales of child stardom in Hollywood. At his peak in the late 1970s and early 80s, Coleman was earning roughly $100,000 per episode, amassing a career fortune estimated at $18 million. However, upon reaching adulthood, he discovered that the vast majority of his wealth had evaporated, leading to a lifetime of litigation, illness, and financial struggle. The root of Coleman's collapse was a betrayal by those closest to him. His adoptive parents and business manager were accused of skimming his earnings through unfair contracts, paying themselves exorbitant salaries and mishandling his trust fund. In 1989, Coleman sued them for misappropriation of funds. Although he won the legal battle in 1993, he was awarded only $1.3 million, a fraction of the millions that had been drained. By 1999, he was forced to file for Chapter 7 bankruptcy, claiming debts of over $72,000 and revealing that his most valuable asset was a $3,000 model train set. Coleman's final years were spent in a dignified but difficult struggle for survival. He famously worked as a security guard to pay for mounting medical bills related to his lifelong kidney disease, which had stunted his growth. His decline became a symbol of the industry's failure to protect child stars. When he passed away in 2010 at age 42, his net worth was estimated at just $75,000, mostly tied to a modest home in Utah and residual rights. His story serves as a haunting reminder of the need for strict financial protections like the Coogan Act to shield young performers from exploitation by their own guardians. Throughout this series on Black Excellence Legends, we have explored the dramatic financial arcs of icons like Toni Braxton and Mike Tyson. These stories reveal a chilling pattern. Massive talent and nine-figure earnings are no shield against predatory contracts, tax negligence, or the weight of a heavy entourage. While some orchestrated strategic comebacks, others were left with nothing but their legacies. This raises a provocative question for the industry today. Is the primary responsibility for these financial collapses on the stars who failed to manage their wealth, or on a systemic industry culture designed to exploit them from day one?